I'm debating a remodel on my house. Nothing major, just a few upgrades that seem sensible. Some extra cabinetry in the laundry room, a home gym in the garage, maybe a few new appliances that actually work the way they're supposed to. I'm amazed at how quickly things seem to fall into disrepair. With a fourth child on the way, I actually considered buying a bigger house, but the run in home prices has been absolutely staggering. From when I bought my house in 2017 to today, it's apparently doubled in value, or at least that's what the bank tells me. So instead of moving, I'm thinking about remodeling and making the most of our space. Maybe a backyard project, like a fire pit and a seating area to complement the sauna. Of course, all of this would be expensive. So I sit here, pencil in hand, weighing the cost against the potential value. Will the return justify the expense? I'm not sure. I'm still debating. I opened today's lecture with this thought because our friendly regional hegemon is having the same conversation and considering a remodel. The United States is looking at the infrastructure they've let age into decay, the manufacturing base that used to hum with life but now sits quiet. And they're wondering if it's time to rebuild. The talk is all about reshoring factories, protecting key industries, and bringing jobs back home. But just like my remodel, theirs will be incredibly expensive. And that expense, the real cost of America's reindustrialization, is the part that nobody seems to be talking about. America wants to rebuild its house. The wiring is outdated, the roof leaks, and the foundation, the industrial base that once supported the world's most productive economy, has begun to crack. The plan is ambitious: tear out the old drywall, replace the pipes, and bring manufacturing back home. Rebuild the factories, reinforce the supply chains, fix the parts of the house that were neglected while the neighbors down the street got rich selling us cheap furniture and electronics. Now, it all sounds great. Who doesn't love the idea of a remodel? More jobs, stronger foundations, and a home that we can be proud of again. But anyone who's ever remodeled anything knows one simple truth: it always costs more than you expect. There are hidden expenses, structural surprises, and the unplanned costs of starting over. The United States is now at the same point of decision, ready to remodel its economic house, but with one major problem. This renovation will come with the biggest bill in history. Coincidentally, we don't have to blind guess what it might cost because China already did it. And recently, from 2001 to today, China has built itself into an industrial superpower, the most comprehensive national remodel in modern history. But the price tag was enormous, roughly $45 to $55 trillion spent building factories, rail lines, power grids, and a series of specialized manufacturing zones. America wants to follow a similar blueprint now, but in today's dollars, meaning higher labor costs, stricter regulations, and an economy already weighed down by record levels of government, corporate, and household debt. Before we start swinging hammers, it's worth asking, can America afford the renovation, and who is going to foot the bill? China's remodel began in 2001, the year it joined the World Trade Organization. With that single decision, the country opened its doors to the world and invited global capital to move in. The government poured resources into roads, railways, ports, and power plants, while state banks unleashed a tidal wave of credit to fund factories, industrial parks, and housing for millions of new workers. For the next 2 decades, China operated like a nation on a construction binge. Every year, cranes filled the skylines. Concrete consumption tripled. Highways stretched thousands of miles across the countryside. In just 10 years, China built more high-speed rail than the rest of the world combined. Everything was designed for efficiency. Refineries built right beside component makers, factories next to rail lines leading straight to deep water ports. It wasn't just infrastructure, it was an entirely new industrial ecosystem built to make, move, and export everything. To measure the scope of that investment, economists use a standard metric called gross fixed capital formation, or GFCF. Now, it's a mouthful, but the idea is simple. GFCF measures how much a country spends building its productive backbone, the factories, machinery, transportation networks, and energy systems that make future production possible. Think of it as a national remodeling bill. When GFCF rises, a country is literally adding more stuff it can produce with more plants, more power, more ports. Between 2001 and today, China's GFCF exploded. By World Bank estimates, the country invested a cumulative 80 to 95 trillion in fixed capital over that period. Roughly 45 to 55 trillion of that went into the core machinery of industrialization. That's the factories, the energy grids, the rail, the infrastructure. This wasn't consumer spending or financial speculation. It was the physical build-out of an industrial civilization, and much of it was financed with debt. During that same period, China's total debt, that's government, corporate, and household combined, rose from about 1.5 trillion to nearly 55 trillion. Its debt to GDP ratio climbed towards 300%. In other words, China's physical transformation was built on borrowed money. The country effectively traded future growth for immediate scale. The payoff, of course, was staggering. China became the world's manufacturing hub, the backbone of global supply chains, and the largest exporter on the planet. Hundreds of millions of people moved into cities and into the middle class. The nation's economic engine roared to life, and for 2 decades, it barely even sputtered. But beneath that success story lies a heavy burden. Debt-fueled growth is like building a mansion on a credit card. It looks spectacular when the money's flowing, but the payment eventually comes due. Today, China's local governments and state-owned enterprises are groaning under the weight of the very loans that built their prosperity. Entire cities are struggling to pay for infrastructure they already constructed. The remodel worked, but the mortgage is enormous. 2 decades later, the United States is looking around its house and realizing the walls are starting to crack. The country that once powered the world's factories now imports much of what it consumes, from electronics to solar panels to pharmaceuticals. The pandemic exposed just how fragile that supply chain had become. The war in Ukraine and rising tensions with China reminded policymakers that dependence on foreign manufacturing isn't just an economic risk, it's a national security threat. So, the new rallying cry is reindustrialization, bring the factories home, reshore the supply chains, protect the key industries that make the modern world possible, the semiconductors, energy, critical minerals, defense and manufacturing, and advanced technology. It's a vision that taps into nostalgia and national pride. The promise of Made in America revived for a new generation. But here's the part no one wants to talk about: the cost. Industrialization isn't an idea, it's a balance sheet. It requires land, labor, materials, machinery, energy, and above all, money. China's industrial miracle was built when steel and cement were cheap, when labor was abundant, and when the global economy was hungry for exports. The United States is entering this race at the opposite end of the cycle: higher wages, higher interest rates, scarcer materials, and a mountain of existing debt. If the United States truly intends to rebuild its industrial base, it will have to do so in a world of expensive money, inflated costs, and stretched balance sheets. The idea sounds noble, and I believe it's inevitable. But before we start tearing down walls and calling the contractors, it's worth asking, how much is this remodel going to cost? That brings us to the uncomfortable question sitting beneath America's entire remodel: who is going to foot the bill? But unlike China in the early 2000s, the United States is not entering this remodel with a clean balance sheet. It's entering it with more than $36 trillion in debt, multi-trillion-dollar deficits every year, and interest costs that now grow faster than its own defense budget. So if the United States is going to rebuild its factories, power grids, refineries, and manufacturing base, the government will need to borrow a staggering amount of money. And in order to borrow, somebody needs to buy your debt. Who is that going to be? Now, for decades, the funding model in America was simple. Foreign countries earned dollars by selling goods to America. Then they stored those dollars in U.S. government IOUs called treasuries. And this loop kept the borrowing cheap and the machine running. But that world is fading. Russia's U.S. treasuries were frozen in 2022. And every country watching got the message. Holding treasuries had now become a political risk. And as a consequence, China, Saudi Arabia, and many others responded by cutting back their purchases of U.S. debt and buying gold instead. Meanwhile, the U.S. continues to issue more treasuries than ever before. So again, if foreign governments won't fund America's remodel, then who will? And ironically, the answer may come from something Washington did not design, did not expect, and still barely understands: a new kind of digital dollar, the accidental lender. I'm talking about stablecoins. Now, over the past few years, digital dollar tokens called stablecoins, specifically USDT and USDC, have exploded in size. A stablecoin is simple. It's a digital token that is always meant to be worth $1. For every stablecoin created, the company behind it must hold $1 real in a very safe asset like a short-term treasury bill. Stablecoins are, in theory, as secure as the US dollars, but as agile as a cryptocurrency. And this makes them excellent for cross-border transactions. And here is the part almost no one realizes. Those stablecoin companies are now some of the largest buyers of short-term US Treasury bills in the world. Stablecoin users don't see themselves as funding the US government. A shop owner in Argentina buys stablecoins to protect their savings from inflation. A trader in Nigeria uses stablecoins to send money quickly. A saver in Turkey buys them because they can't get real dollars from their bank. None of these people are thinking about treasury auctions in the United States. But behind the scenes, every digital dollar they hold forces the stablecoin company to buy a matching amount of US government dollars or debt. More stablecoins equals more treasury bills that must be bought. And the stablecoin market is already over $200 billion. Analysts expect it could grow to $500 billion or even $1 trillion within a few years. And if that happens, stablecoin issuers would be required by simple arithmetic to buy hundreds of billions of dollars of US government debt and fund this remodel. That's the hidden funding source. And although Washington didn't intend for this, they've noticed. So instead of banning stablecoins, the United States is moving toward formal rules that would require stablecoin issuers to hold only two types of assets: short-term US Treasuries or US dollars parked at the Federal Reserve. This would turn stablecoin issuers into a new class of buyers: steady, automatic, and massive. Every new stablecoin created becomes another dollar of demand for US government debt. It's a clever way to replace the foreign central banks that have stopped buying, and it comes with another benefit. It spreads the reach of the dollar even further. People around the world can hold a digital dollar on their phone without ever opening a US bank account. Stablecoins let the dollar reach places the official system cannot. The old system relied on foreign governments buying treasuries. The new system relies on individuals and businesses worldwide choosing digital dollars because they trust them more than their own currencies. In other words, the dollar loses official support but gains global supporters. Treasury demand shifts from governments to people, and America finds a new way to fund its economy. So the money's not going to come from China. It's not going to come from Japan. It's not going to come from oil exporters, and not from the old set of global buyers. It will come from the rise of digital dollars held by millions of people around the world who want something safer than their local money. It's all about relativity. Every one of those digital dollars must be backed by something real, and that something is overwhelmingly US government debt. So without meaning to, the world has created a new funding engine for America's next chapter. Stablecoins solve a global problem: easy access to US dollars for people that don't have them. And they solve an American problem: finding new buyers for its debt. If the United States chooses to lean into this shift, stablecoins may quietly become the foundation that finances the most expensive remodel in modern history. But of course, this is not a perfect story. There are real questions that deserve honest attention. Some will argue that stablecoins are too new, too untested, and too dependent on private companies to play any serious role in financing a nation. Others will point out that regulation is still evolving, and any mistake from a major stablecoin issuer could shake trust in the whole system. And it's fair to ask whether global demand for digital dollars will grow fast enough or large enough to meaningfully support the trillions America needs to borrow. And in my honest opinion, it won't. There is also the larger concern that leaning on stablecoins could delay the hard choices that the United States keeps avoiding: controlling spending, rebuilding industry with real productivity gains, and restoring long-term fiscal discipline. Stablecoins might buy time, but they don't fix bad policy. These are all reasonable critiques. They should be on the table. So the question isn't whether stablecoins are perfect. The question is whether they are becoming a major new source of demand at a moment when America badly needs one. In a world where the old buyers are stepping back, that might be enough to bridge the gap. America still has big decisions ahead. But if this remodel is going to happen, and if the country is serious about rebuilding its economic house, then understanding where the next wave of financing comes from isn't optional. It's the foundation. This is the Jay Martin Show, where we cover the greatest minds and greatest conversations in geopolitics and finance so that we can better understand the world. I cover topics just like this every week here on the channel. If you enjoy my content, do me a favor, hit like, hit subscribe, and most importantly, share this video with a friend. That's all for today. I'll see you next week.